Welcome back to the Midnight Fire. There is a specific kind of silence that only exists deep in the woods. A silence so heavy it feels like it's pressing against your eardrums. But in some places, the silence is a lie. Deep in the heart of the Black Ridge, there is a stretch of timber where the wind carries more than just the scent of pine. It carries names, it carries secrets, it carries the voices of those who never came out. Tonight, we walk the path into the Whispering Woods. Don't answer the voices. No matter how much they sound like someone you love. Elias was an experienced hiker. He loved the isolation the way the modern world vanished behind a wall of green. He had heard the warnings at the trailhead, the stay on the path signs that looked more like desperate pleas than suggestions. He laughed them off, but as the sun began to dip below the horizon, the atmosphere changed. The birds went silent, the squirrels vanished, and then he heard it, a faint, melodic sound, like a woman humming. It was his mother's favorite tune. The problem was, his mother had been dead for 10 years. Elias stopped, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Hello," he called out. The forest didn't answer with an echo. It answered with a giggle. He tried to turn back, but the trail was gone. In its place was a wall of thorns and ancient, gray-barked trees that seemed to have shifted while he wasn't looking. The whispering started then, not just one voice, but dozens. They were coming from the leaves, the roots, the very air. They were calling his name. "Elias, come see what we found," whispered his best friend's voice. "Elias, it's cold out here," pleaded his little sister. He knew they weren't there. He knew it was an impossible trick. But the human brain is a fragile thing when it's lonely and scared. He began to run, but every direction felt like he was moving deeper into the throat of something massive, through the mist. Elias saw them, the gray men of the woods. They weren't ghosts, and they weren't quite animals. They were tall, gaunt figures, their skin the texture of old birch bark. They stood perfectly still, blending into the forest. They didn't have vocal cords of their own. They stole the sounds of the world around them. Elias watched in horror as one of the figures opened its mouth, a jagged, black tear in its face, and out came the sound of his own heavy breathing, perfectly replicated. They were learning him. They were absorbing his fear, his breath, his identity. Every step he took, they mirrored, a silent, terrifying choreography of predators. He stumbled into a clearing dominated by a dead oak, its branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. At its base was a hollow, and inside, Elias saw the truth. Dozens of hikers, or what was left of them, were fused into the wood. Their skin had turned to bark, their hair to moss. They were still alive, in a way, their mouths locked open in a permanent, silent scream. This was the source of the whispers. The forest didn't just kill you, it harvested your voice to lure the next victim. Elias felt a sharp vine wrap around his ankle. He looked down and saw his own skin beginning to gray, his fingernails turning into hard, wooden claws. He didn't scream. He realized that the voices fed on sound. With a desperate, agonizing effort, he bit his tongue until it bled, using the pain to keep from making a noise. He crawled, inch by inch, through the thorns that tore at his flesh. The gray men circled him, screaming in his mother's voice, his father's voice, his own voice trying to provoke a reaction. But Elias stayed silent. He became a ghost himself, a shadow moving through shadows, as his hand finally touched the cold asphalt of the mountain road. The whispers stopped instantly. The forest went dead silent, as if disappointed. Elias survived, but he never spoke another word. He knew that if he opened his mouth, the forest would find him again. So, if you ever find yourself hiking and you hear a familiar voice calling from the trees, and don't be polite. Don't answer, because in the Whispering Woods, your voice is the only thing they want to keep. Thank you for listening to The Midnight Fire. Subscribe to stay safe in the dark. And remember, sometimes, silence is your best friend. Good night.